Continuing on, Michael Jackson, who returned to the United States on December the 10th, 1993 to face the charges, was not arrested when he first landed on U.S. soil. And I find that kind of unusual with all the hype that was going on about what he allegedly did. And the police had already talked to the young accuser at least 2 times at that point. They had raided several of Michael Jackson's properties, not only properties that he lived in and resided in, but hotels where he probably stayed at. They raided all of this, so I'm pretty sure they had a lot of evidence of what was being said about him. What about the ex-disgruntled employees of him, being on TV shows, getting paid large amounts of money, talking about Michael Jackson? They seen this and they seen that, so police got a whole lot of evidence. So why wasn't he arrested when he stepped off the plane back to LA? I'm just wondering. That's kind of interesting. He returned on December 10, 1993. He got questioned by the police in an interview and strip searched on December 20th, 1993. And remember, they had the young accuser, Jordan Chandler's description of his body at that point. So, they could verify it because they strip searched Michael on December 20th, 1993, but they didn't arrest him then. They didn't arrest him then. So, Michael, on December 22nd, 1993, from his Neverland Valley Ranch, decided to give us a little speech of what's going on. Well, he wanted to blatantly and boldly deny the allegations that were leveled against him, but he also confirmed that he was strip searched and they took pictures of his body, and he said if that's what it takes to clear his name, to completely clear his name, hey, it's cool with him. Basically, that's what he said. So, he denying, he's claiming his innocence on December 22nd after arriving back in the United States. He had been in the United States about approximately 2 weeks at that point. So, that's interesting. I still want to know why the police, with all this so quote-unquote evidence, defining evidence, why they didn't arrest him. They could have came to Neverland Valley Ranch at that point and arrested him right in the middle of the press conference. Wouldn't that have been something that would have made good TV? Because this I don't want to call it a press conference, but this speech that he gave, this engagement was broadcast all around the world. So I just want you to know that. But yeah. While the police and prosecutors continue to find any evidence of that a crime had occurred by trying to force witnesses to say something, all this stuff, trying to force children, small children, 12, 13, 10 years old, that spent time with Michael Jackson, trying to force them to say something happened to him, and all this, while they doing all this stuff to try to find any evidence they can. The Chandler family chose to still push the civil trial. They pushed heavily on the civil trial. They really didn't have no interest in the criminal trial. They were pushing for the civil trial, heavily for that civil trial. So, yeah, that's what they were on. And Michael Jackson's civil attorneys tried to delay that civil trial. They tried to delay it probably no less than 4 times. They tried to put motions in to delay that civil trial till the criminal matter was resolved for obvious reasons. And they were denied each and every time that they put in a motion to delay the civil matter, which was to take place in like early February, I think. It was set to take place in like February of 1994. I would just like to add to people who don't already know, a civil trial, the rewards for winning a civil trial is nothing but money damages. There's this money. Civil trials is based on money compensation. I just want to let people know that there's no criminal repercussions from a civil trial. None. No criminal repercussions from a civil trial. I need to say that and reiterate that so people would know. While obviously biased, prosecutors and police from 2 counties continue to criminally investigate Michael Jackson with no evidence, and threatening to really violate his rights to a fair trial. Michael Jackson and his civil attorneys and his advisors got together in several meetings, and they unanimously decided to settle the civil case. It would be in the best interest to settle the civil case, because they was basically backed in a corner with the civil court judge denying their motion to delay that civil trial till the criminal matter was taken care of. They did not want to give the thirsty criminal prosecutors and police any ammo to be able to deny him having a fair trial if a criminal prosecution came to be. So Michael Jackson's attorney, Johnny Cochran, and Chandler family attorney, Larry Feldman, started negotiating for a settlement of the civil lawsuit. I just want to say that attorney Larry Feldman wasn't only representing Jordan Chandler, the alleged victim, but he was representing Jordan's dad, Evan Chandler, and Jordan's mother, June Chandler, as well. So all 3 of them were part of this civil lawsuit. And Larry Feldman was representing all 3 of them. On January the 25th, 1994, Chandler family attorney Larry Feldman and Michael Jackson attorney Johnny Cochran reached a settlement to the civil court civil court lawsuit. On January the 25th, 1994 is when they announced that they had reached this settlement to the civil lawsuit. They announced it jointly in a press conference, a world televised press conference. It was a highly publicized press conference outside the courtroom. They announced that they had come to a civil lawsuit settlement. A couple of interesting things I noticed from the civil suit settlement was the lawsuit that the Chandlers have filed against Michael Jackson was for $30 million in damages. But the settlement amount was around $23 million. Another thing that struck me was attorney Larry Feldman filed at least 6 counts against Michael Jackson in that civil lawsuit. And in the settlement, they settled on the least egregious one of negligence, of the general term negligence. That's the lesser charge of all 6 that he filed against Michael Jackson in that civil suit. And that's interesting to me. That is really interesting. You would think that if I was a family and someone had molested my child or had sex or improper acts with my child and they wanted to get a settlement, I would think I would get them they would have to concede to get some type of civil settlement from me. They would have to admit that they had did something sexual with my child. At least they would have to come to that, or we not having no settlement. At least they would have to admit to that. But hey, it was on the civil settlement was on the general term of negligence, which I found to be interesting, when there were 5 other more serious charges they were charged with in that civil settlement by the Chandler family. Also, the civil lawsuit was settled without requiring Michael Jackson to even admit to any type of guilt. And remember, this is agreed upon from the Chandler family and their lawyer, Larry Feldman. This is something that was agreed upon by them as well in the settlement. Unbelievable. Although the details of the settlement were vowed to be confidential by all parties involved, this did not prevent the Chandler family from continuing to cooperate in any criminal investigation at all. Did not prevent them one bit. That civil settlement didn't prevent the Chandler family at all from participating or cooperating in a criminal investigation. Evan, June, nor Jordan. As I've stated previously, although the original amount that they sued for was $30 million, they ended up settling for somewhere around $23 million. And the breakdown went like this. About $15 million put in a trust for Jordan. About $1.5 million for Evan. And about $1.5 for June. And about $5 million for the Chandler family's attorneys. I hear the voices out there saying, well, he paid $23 million. He paid $23 million to hush money. All this, $23 million. Well, first of all, it was not hush money. Because as I stated earlier in this video, the police had already talked to Jordan Chandler and his family at least 2 times they'd interviewed them at least 2 times already. So the story was already out there, and the police were leaking parts of the interview from Jordan at that time. They were leaking it to the press about what Jordan was accusing at the time. So yes, so the news was already out there. So how can you give hush money to someone who's already talked to the police, had several interviews with the police? So let's knock that out our head. Then they talk about the amount, $23 million. The Chandlers was originally suing in that civil suit for $30 million. So $7 million. They took a $7 million compromise on that and settled for about $23 million. Okay, that's another thing. $23 million. Yeah, that is a lot of money. That's a heck of a lot of money. And that's definitely a lot of money for me, you, and most of us out here. But for Michael Jackson, that was a drop in a pan for him at that time. He was the most famous person on the planet. He was involved in a $1 billion deal with Sony at the time. $23 million was like a drop in a bucket for him. Michael Jackson could have made that in one concert. That plus some on top in one concert. So it was a drop in a pan for him. He had bigger things going on. Like I said, he at that time had a $1 billion deal with Sony at that time. So he had a lot more, 10 times, multiple times more than that to lose at that time. So so that was nothing to him at the time. And let's not talk about the possibility of him being denied a fair trial if a criminal prosecution act came to be. He would have been denied a fair trial because the criminal prosecutors would have got a look at his defense in that civil trial, and they would have sat back and they would have tailored any type of criminal prosecution against him based on what went on in that civil trial. They would have used information to try to tailor any criminal prosecution against him in that trial. It may have been successful in their devious deeds. So yes, I agree with the civil settlement. He did the right thing. Even though later he didn't feel like he did the right thing, at that time he did the right thing. The wrong part of that whole thing is that civil trial should never have taken precedent over a criminal prosecution. Never. It shouldn't have never took place over a criminal prosecution. That's that's what the crazy part was. So he basically was backed in a corner. That's what he was. He was backed in a corner, and that's how that civil trial settlement came to be. It was not to silence or hush anybody, because All the allegations was all the way out at that point. So, who are you hushing? Who are you silencing? What is that? Even the Chandler's family attorney, Larry Feldman, stated in the press conference that announced the civil settlement that no one's bought anyone's silence, and his clients were still willing and still willing to cooperate with any criminal investigation against Michael Jackson. So he even stated that. He stated that no one bought anyone's silence. That civil, it was separate from any criminal prosecution, and his clients were still willing to cooperate fully with any criminal investigation. LA County DA at the time, Gil Garcetti, even said that the civil case settlement would have no effect on the criminal investigation that he was conducting. Yes. Jordan Chandler was even interviewed again by police after the civil settlement. And still, with that interview that was after the civil settlement, and he giving them an interview, cooperating with police, because he gave them an interview after the civil settlement. So how can you silence someone if they're still giving interviews in a criminal investigation about you that's derogatory towards you? How is that silencing anyone? But anyway, he gave an interview to the police after the civil settlement, and still there was no charges brung against Michael, no criminal charges brung against Michael Jackson. In the spring of 1994, Thomas Snadden, the DA at the time of Santa Barbara County, and the DA of LA County at the time, Gil Garcetti, convened separate grand juries to get an indictment against Michael Jackson on criminal charges. On April 11, 1994, DA of Santa Barbara County at the time, Thomas Snedden, was granted 90 more days to gather evidence by the he was granted 90 more days to gather evidence on April 11, 1994. So basically, he didn't have enough evidence at that point. He didn't have no evidence. So he was granted 90 more days to gather some evidence. Interesting. This also extended the grand jury session in Santa Barbara County as well. So the grand jury was still in session during this extended 90 days that DA at the time, Thomas Stanton, was given to gather more evidence, quote unquote. One of the methods that DA Tom Stanton and his investigators were pondering was send out a subpoena to Michael Jackson's own mother, Catherine Jackson, to appear before the grand jury so she could be questioned about the appearance of her son's penis, basically. So to corroborate or see if anything had changed, or did Michael Jackson alter his appearance in any type of way, or his genitals in any type of way. Again, signaling that those pictures, those infamous pictures that was took of Michael Jackson's body in December of 1993 didn't match the description. This is a big indicator that it didn't match the description. There would be no pondering of bringing Mrs. Jackson into a grand jury hearing to ask her about the appearance of her son's genitals if they match. That's all I'm saying on that. the attempt to get a grand jury indictment in LA County was having similar problems. The similar problems that they couldn't jump over was the lack of evidence. The same problem that they was having in Santa Barbara County. But the LA County DA at the time, Gil Garcetti, he did push forward. He gave it a good fight in LA County with the grand jury, trying to procure a grand jury indictment, but he was unsuccessful. The grand jury disbanded in LA County, disbanded in May of 1994 with no indictment, no criminal indictment at all. In and around July 6, 1994, the Chandler family stopped cooperating with the criminal investigation. So they informed prosecutors that they no longer wanted to be involved in the criminal investigation. Mind you, this is approximately 6 months after that civil settlement that the Chandlers and Michael Jackson agreed upon. So where is the silencing the accusers at? I don't see it. This is approximately 6 months after the civil agreement. So yeah, up until July 6, 1994, they were cooperating with the criminal investigation, fully cooperating, all of them, including young accuser Jordan Chandler. And the prosecutors at the time, they verified this, that they had full cooperation from the Chandler family up until this point, July 6, 1994. Also in July of 1994, the final grand jury in Santa Barbara County disbanded with no indictment against no criminal indictment against Michael Jackson. And so with DA at the time, Thomas Nedden, getting even an extra 90 days to garner more evidence, still, once those 90 days was over, or about 90 days was over, still didn't have evidence to convict or indict or get an indictment from a grand jury on criminal charges against Michael Jackson. Big. This is big. This is a big point here. So that would mean that he had little to no evidence that a crime was committed. But with that final disbandment of the grand jury, the final disbandment of the grand jury in Santa Barbara County, the final disbandment of the grand jury in LA County with no indictment going on, these two prosecutors, Thomas Nedden and Gil Garcetti, chose to still keep the investigations rolling against Michael Jackson. On September the 22nd, 1994, LA County District Attorney Gil Garcetti announced in a press conference that they were officially closing the investigation, the criminal investigation into Michael Jackson. He cited lack of evidence as the reason, and not having the testimony of Jordan Chandler, which in my opinion is utter BS. That's him kind of saving face, because as I told you, Jordan Chandler was fully cooperating with the police until he notified them in July of 1994 that he no longer wanted to be involved in anything that named him as a victim. But yeah, he wanted to do that. He wanted to throw that out there to save face. But the big thing here that he said in that press conference for they closing the investigation for a lack of evidence. And that's what his truth was right there. September 22nd, 1994. On the other hand, we have Santa Barbara County DA at the time, Thomas Nedden, who refused to officially close the investigation into Michael Jackson, stating that he had faith in the accuser's story. One thing though, Thomas Nedden was an attorney, so attorneys normally don't go on faith, they go on facts and evidence, and which he had none and a lack of, so he could never criminally prosecute Michael Jackson because he didn't have. So you don't prosecute people on faith, you prosecute them on facts and evidence, and he didn't have that. And he seemed a little angry that he didn't have that, because it was like, he wanted them. He had some sort of vendetta. Thomas Nedden seemed to have some vendetta against Michael Jackson. Like I said, he did not officially close the investigation, the 93 investigation. He left it as an open investigation. And you would think a seasoned prosecutor that he was, after 13 months of criminally investigating Mr. Michael Jackson, interviewing over 400 people, your investigation, and you couldn't come up with a criminal prosecution or indictment against him, you would just let it go and officially close the investigation. But like I said, he left it as an open investigation, for almost 10 years to 2003, 2005. And that one went to trial, and we all know what happened. Michael Jackson was found not guilty on all charges, and DA Thomas Nedden had to pick his face up off the ground, because if he didn't have no evidence that a crime was committed in 1993's investigation, he did not have any evidence that a crime was committed in 2005. That's all he had was faith. Like he said, faith. No facts or evidence, faith. Like he said, he had faith in the 93 accusers story. He had faith in the 2005 accuser story. So he was prosecuting on faith, I guess. There you go. But with that, I'm gonna leave it right here. This is the third and final part of the Michael Jackson and the Chandler's 1993 investigation. I must say that it was an investigation. It was never a prosecution or indictment. There was never a criminal indictment or prosecution in works. Michael Jackson was never arrested during that whole investigation. He was never criminally charged during that investigation. Nothing like that. So that's just big points that I want to make. But now with that, I'm going to end the video right there. This is the final, like I said, this is the third and final part to the Michael Jackson versus the Chandler's 1993 investigation. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't had a chance to check out the previous two parts, I'm going to leave a link to both of those parts in the description below in this video so you can check it out. Please feel free to like, share, comment on this video. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. After subscribing, please click that little notification bell in order to be notified of any new uploads. Thank you all for the support. I truly appreciate it. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Peace! I'm out. One love. Stay safe always.